Hey, good evening, everyone. This is your humble public servant, State Representative Brad Halbrook, joined with another humble public servant, Chris Miller. Chris, how
Why
you
is
doing Sunday
that
night? How you
why
doing?
is that funny, Brother Albrecht? I'm not exactly understanding the humor there, but we're doing good. I just got done doing my chores of the evening and putting a little silage out for the cows and a little hay and making sure they're happy and comfortable.
Well, that's important. I think we got a little wind coming in, but I think the temps are going to be okay, right? I mean, at least for the next 3 or 4 days, we're going to have some kind of maybe unseasonable warm temps, but then maybe cool off towards the end of the week once again. But keeping the livestock fed is pretty important. So, Chris, I'm glad you got their needs at the top of your list.
There's an occasional cold front that blows through Sangamon County every now and then.
Yeah, and that's a topic probably for another day, another discussion. Hey, guys, I apologize. I think I posted up this thing was going live at 7. Being the jet setters we are, sometimes we never know what time zone we're in, so I apologize for that. 6 o'clock is typically what we were going to do on Sunday night, unless there's something special going on. 7 o'clock every Tuesday night, and that's the big one. You want to be there Tuesday night, where we will try to bring on a guest and discuss the important topics of the day. I'm not really sure what we're going to get done this coming Tuesday night, just because there's just an unlimited number of topics that we can be talking about now that we're in the full throes of what's going on in Springfield. What's happening over there on your end?
Well, I think that one of the things is we're trying to decide where we should go to the bathroom. I mean, that's some of the heavy lifting we do in Springfield. That's just a rumor. It may not be true. I don't know. But this is what I know is that you have said many times that our conversation will bring truth, logic, and common sense to the discussion, regardless of what the issue is. But there's just I don't know the Democrats are a petri dish of bad ideas, and just about the time that you think that they couldn't dream up something else, they dream up something else that you just makes you scratch your head.
Yeah, no doubt. And you're right. This is a source for truth, logic, and common sense. And I forgot to kind of say, this is we really ought to kind of bring this together and call this kind of the conservative campfire, where we talk about those things. It's you've been around a lot of campfires, Chris, and you talk about a lot of subjects, and it's kind of unvarnished. It's kind of a transparent conversation a lot of times around the campfire. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, I just want to remind everybody, hey, let us know where you're watching from tonight. And, we'd like to get, when I started doing this thing on a Sunday night a couple of 3 years ago, about 2 years ago, I guess, we were doing the front porch live. And Chris, I don't know, I think this would be fun if somebody would volunteer their front porch sometime. And maybe we could go there to their place and do a front porch live somewhere in the district or somewhere here in East Central Illinois. That might be kind of fun to do that. So maybe we get something going on that here as we get closer to better weather. We'll make an announcement, maybe make a contest out of it, and maybe take this show on the road on Sunday night potentially. What's your thoughts about that? You like going on the
Yeah.
road on a Sunday night?
I think that's a great idea. I know that the only thing I will say the last time that we tried to give tickets away to a special event there in Springfield, the state of the state, we didn't have. I don't think we had one person that wanted those precious tickets to go listen to JB lie to us for an hour nonstop.
I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, we had 2 pairs. I mean, usually when somebody gives away tickets, Chris, you got them just fighting over them. And 2 pairs to the governor of Illinois, state of the state budget speech, in the state capitol. I would have thought people would have been fighting for that. But
Well,
wow.
I thought they'd be all over that like a biting sow, but I was sure wrong about that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how many more offers we might get to do a front porch live if we can't give away tickets to the governor's speech, but maybe they view that differently. Hey, talking about, and I want to come back to your discussion about this bathroom bill, but I've got before we get too deep into this conversation, we won't tie folks up more than 2 or 3 hours here tonight. But I've got one remaining town hall. I'm going to bring it up here. I'm going to bring the graphic up a little bit on the screen. I've got a town hall. Uh, yeah, here we go. There we go. I've got a town hall
That,
tomorrow night in Taylorville. I'm going to be joined with my state senator, Steve McClure, 6 o'clock at the Taylorville Public Library. It's not going to be a very big room. So RSVP, just go to rephalbrook.com. Let us know you're going to be there. And we'd love to have you come out. This will be the fourth one, Chris, that I've done with either myself or Senator McClure. We had a great event last Monday night in Sullivan, pretty well attended. A lot of great discussion. I don't know. I think the thing went almost hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. And then we adjourned and it broke out again, kind of like Asbury, I think, revival in Sullivan.
Holy Ghost revival. The big question that is just lingering in my mind is, I was wondering, did you guys take those pictures when you were in high school, or just how recent were those taken on that flyer?
Well, I can tell you the one. Mine was taken about a little over 2.5 years ago. That was in the fall 2 years ago. And Senator McClure's, I'm not going to claim to know when that one was taken. So anyhow, yeah. So anyhow, tomorrow night, that's going to be 6 o'clock. We will start promptly at 6 o'clock at the Taylorville Public Library. And if you're over in that neighborhood, love to have you be there to that. And like I say, Senator Steve McClure will be with us. So Chris, you talked about what is it? Multi-gender bathroom bill? Was that in a committee that you're on, or is that we just know what's going on?
No, it's not in the committee I'm on, but there were other representatives talking about that the other day. I feel like we need to ask the question. We have a men's bathroom and a ladies' bathroom there on the house floor, and I was wondering if we are going to start sharing each other's bathrooms. I think that we should ask that question, because I have a real bad habit of not raising the lid, and I get in trouble all the time.
We might be swerving into too much truth here tonight. We may have to hold up on that one. So
for some reason, I'm thinking that there would be a severe double standard here, that we have to do this anyplace else but here.
Yeah. I just this is another bill that you can tell when this stuff happens, because my phone and email lights up pretty fast. And
Mm-hmm.
and one of the most extreme bills was the sex ed bill a year ago. They give the schools the option to opt out, right? So 70% plus of the schools opted out of that sex ed bill. But so what they tried to do this winter during the lame duck, come back and force feed it, right?
Yeah.
And thankfully it got beat back in the Senate. I think beat it back. But this kind of whole virtue signaling and kind of force these cultural changes on people. Chris, I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't think that's going to go very well.
Well, I think that over at Arthur Christian School would be a prime example of what is going to happen. Is they're adding on a new wing to the school, and it looks really, really big. And so
Right.
I'm guessing that's what we're going to see if the Democrats continue want to push this radical sex ed agenda and another thing is to continue to um, to indoctrinate our kids but not educate them. And I was thinking about this a little bit too, is that some of the tried and true methods of educating have been kind of left by the wayside. And I know that we can all do math. It's not that hard. But I thought that one of the reasons why is because most of us grew up with Saxon math, and we learned the math facts. And now they've got, what do they call that? It's almost like revisionist mathematics with
Right.
there's a name for it. I can't think of it, but
Yeah.
it's complicating the simple,
Right.
the way that they do math nowadays. And I'll think of it here in a minute. But I mean, it's just, hey, the simplicity of learning to read, write, spell, do math, learn real history. I mean, I don't know how that you can possibly get away with that, especially when we're away from that, especially when we're seeing the net effect of this woke agenda, and as Brother Niemerg would say, the wokeification of our young students.
Right. Yeah, and he's pretty passionate about that as well as he should be, and many others should be, right? I mean, he's got 2 youngsters there, and he's seeing this unfold across his district and across the state.
Mm.
Feminine hygiene products in the boys' bathroom, and, I think we kind of affectionately called that the, full employment for, plumbers bill, I think is what we thought. I think you might have coined that, Chris.
Very true. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
so It's, yeah, so here we got a commenter says it's Obama math. That's probably kind of right. And then here's a commenter says we need to protect the children at all cost. And here's this is a pretty good comment, Chris. All gender restroom, Illinois legislature should lead by example. Wonder how that'd go over.
100%. Hey, that's what I always said is leaders go first. Blaze the trail for us, please.
Right. Well, let me I'm trying to find something here. Our fine where did that go? Here we go. Here we go. I got too many choices on my screen. So you're talking about going first. Here's a great bill that Senator Rose proposed just a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know if you can see that graphic or not. I don't have a bigger one, but it says, hey, you go first, Chicago, right? If they want to impose all these really light duty standards on downstate Illinois for the wind and solar installations, but they don't put these in the neighborhoods there that they live in, where the majority of these votes, well, nearly all the votes, come from the small geographical center in the northeastern corner of our state that we affectionately call Chicago and Cook County and the Collars. That's where the nearly all the votes come for this stuff that affects all of us downstate in farm country. And so Senator Rose introduced, "Hey Chicago, you go first. Let's put these up on Millennial Park and all the great highlighted spots in Chicago."
They could elevate them a little bit so the children could play underneath them. I would think maybe have sandbox and all
Right,
the neighborhood cats could come by there. But I mean, this is such a bad idea. I think that this is definitely the sham issue of our time.
right,
In fact, I don't know what, because it's going to eventually destroy the economy in America, and eventually destroy America
right,
unless they pull their head out of well, the place where the sun don't shine and the wind don't blow.
right. Yeah. Hey, my friend Sonny posted here on a comment, Common Core math. That's what you were
That's
looking for. Common
that's
Core.
exactly, yeah.
It's so common that, I mean, they teach this right at the four-year educational universities, right? So the teachers, the instructors can get it, but not very many parents understand, and I'm sure a lot of grandparents don't understand this stuff. So when it comes to tutoring their youngsters, it's very difficult to get that done because it's seems like a very complicated, convoluted type of instruction, Chris.
Well, it's just like we've always said, they do their best to complicate the simple, and Common Core math would be a prime example of complicating the simple.
Right. So we see this all gender bathroom bill. We see the hygiene product machines in the boys' bathroom. Like you said, the wokeification of our schools and trying to impose this indoctrination on our youngsters. I don't know that over there at Arthur Christian School. I think about the time they get the last nail drove in the wall, I think they break ground for another addition on their place over there, Chris. It just seems I drive by there a lot. It seems like they're always building. Um,
Well,
People are
they've got a big building project going on right now. I do know that because I
right,
drive by there every time
right,
when I go to Springfield, and they've got a doozy of an addition going on right now.
right. Yeah, and I hopefully everybody heard our press conference on education funding Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon. I'm going to run the Illinois Freedom Caucus website. So that if you missed that press conference Wednesday afternoon, we talked about education funding and the outcomes. That's the education, or like Representative Wilhauer talks about the educrats wanting more and more money every year, and the system is built to fund an additional $350 million every year, but they're in Springfield asking for yet another 200 million on top of that. But yet the scores in most of these schools are declining.
Yeah.
And so we had a press conference about it. You can find it there at illinoisfreedomcaucus.org and on the website, or I'm sorry, Facebook site. Just look it up there. Um, Chris, how do you think that press conference went? How do you think it was received?
Well, I think that it probably made some of our colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle a little bit nervous when we were exposing some of the things that are actually
Mhm.
going in the non-education education
Right.
of our kids, and because there is so much money that changes hands when it comes to the IEA and the union powers that be. There's a lot of bought and paid for politicians, and when you start shedding the light of truth on
Mhm.
what's actually taking place in our government indoctrination centers, a lot of the political class gets really nervous about that and a little
Right.
squeamish. And so, but I think it's part of our responsibility to shine the light of truth on all these issues that nobody wants to talk about.
Right. And I guess nobody has a couple of things that I've asked for, and we have a K-12 or education funding committee meeting every Tuesday afternoon. I think it meets at 2 o'clock. It'll meet again this coming Tuesday. And I've asked the question, how much money does it take to educate students? What is the number of money, the financial resources that all of us have to put into this to make it work? And when you look at these test scores or these scores, they say, well, those don't really mean what that's not really right or whatever. I'm like, well, this is on the Illinois State Board of Education's website. You can go to there. You can
Yeah,
look up your individual schools,
right.
and they want to tell us those numbers aren't accurate. And then you look at the
Yeah, I
national
think
scores.
even in some of the reporting of that press conference was pretty disingenuous because, as far as I know, I think those numbers were pulled off the ISB
Exactly.
website. It wasn't like that we pulled these out of thin air. It was
Right,
on their own website and their own
right,
information, and all we were doing was making that known to the world as far as what is going on, and that's the data
right,
that they collected, not us.
right. And, the person that's kinda helping us to aggregate all this, I'm gonna put their website here on the scroll on the bottom. And we had Ted Dabrowski on last Tuesday evening with us on a live stream. These guys are taking those numbers from the ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education. That's a government agency. They're aggregating those numbers and they're writing and they're telling the story what's going on in these schools. I mean, I
Mhm.
think the report they put out a week and a half ago, 30 schools have 0 kids at grade level for reading, and
Yeah.
50 some schools, there's 0 kids at grade level for math. Chris,
Yeah.
that's not a good deal for the kids, anybody.
No, it's really a disservice to this generation of students that are coming up, but because I mean, in defense of the teachers, they are put in a pressure cooker to move these kids through the system, because it's just like you say that the graduation rate is really high, but the education rate is really low.
Right.
And somehow we need to blend those two things together.
And Chris, we both know lots of teachers and they're doing a great job. I mean, they're great people, right? But there's
Right.
something going on here between um, some of these teachers that are our friends and neighbors, family members, and they're scored really high, but for some reason something isn't adding up. I mean, $16,000 average spend per student in the state. Um, 67% of them on an average are not at grade level in math and reading. I again, I'm not sure what the numbers should be, but those seem like extremely, extremely low.
Well, there's a disconnect between the unions and I'm trying to think the teachers that are
Mhm.
busting their tails every day to try to
Right,
educate the kids, and there's a disconnect between the teachers and the administration, I think, in a lot of ways, because there's a real disparity between
right,
the administrative positions are very, 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 very well paid,
right.
and it's kind of like the old Peter principle is the work expands to encompass the number of people that are available there. And I
Right.
mean, it seems like that there's a lot of taxpayer abuse when it comes to overstaffing. And definitely, I mean, when you start, I don't know, I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but it needs to be fixed and it needs to be addressed.
Well, there's been some attempts at some legislation over the past few years to do some reforms, but it always gets killed, by the union bosses, right?
Right,
And, I think when I talk to teachers, they kinda tell me what the issues are, and I can understand that, and I can see that, uh, but none of them have told me that it's about lack of funding. There's
right,
always some other things, whether it's discipline in the classroom or the curriculum. It's never about the funding. And I know a lot of teachers, they've told me they have bought some supplies or some different things to do to their classroom to make it a more inviting, more friendly, more safe kind of an environment. And I touch on safe, Chris. I'm starting to hear that kids don't feel safe in some of these classrooms.
right. No, I think that safety and security is a problem, and just the overall discipline in the classroom has
Right.
become an issue over time when we want to coddle and coo all these kids rather than discipline them. And,
Right.
and it's a problem. And I feel for the teachers trying to educate a classroom that's totally out of control because
Right.
education is a discipline and it takes discipline to learn.
Yeah.
And it also takes a certain amount of personal desire to learn the stuff too. And
Exactly.
especially the older you get.
Right.
Um, but I think that, not to change the subject, but I think that the most egregious, I mean, this is a bad deal, but even, one of the things that is going to drive us into further bankruptcy is this green bad deal and what we
Mhm.
see going on with the price of energy becoming unaffordable.
Mhm.
For the
Mhm.
last 2 months, my electric bill is averaged. One month it was 940. This last bill was almost $700, and you
Yeah.
know I'm going to complain about it, but I can pay it. But there's a lot of people that are on fixed incomes and
Right.
seniors, disabled. You know, they can't pay their bill, and
Right.
it's all because of this stupid green energy uh, euphoria that some of these people have tried to cling on to. And you know, there's an app you can get on your phone from MISO, which is the energy provider for Ameren, and it'll tell you in real time what's being produced
Right.
from solar, wind, coal, nuclear, and so on. And I know the other day when we were in committee that with one of my colleagues that we were looking at this, and at that particular point in time, solar was producing 2% of our energy needs,
Right.
and wind was producing either 16 or 18. So basically, and they're wanting to shut down the rest of the people, the rest of the entities that are contributing to power our electric grid. And so they're going to have to come up with 80% more
Right.
wind and solar. And when you look around, the landscape is just covered with these
Mm.
with the windmills and solar panels now. And another little interesting fun fact is that I've been trying to find out how many acres it's taking to produce 2% of our energy needs. And I haven't been able to find out that number, but I know if we're going to try to make up and get the 80% more from renewables. I mean, I got a feeling that over the half the landmass in Illinois is going to be covered with windmills and solar panels. It
Right.
about has to be.
Right. Yeah, and just to go back in time when we did the energy tour a year and a half ago, the Prairie State Energy Campus down in southwestern Illinois produces about 1,600 megawatts. That's their net output. They produce more than that, but to run the facility takes a fair amount of that. To replace that with solar panels is 235,000 acres. That was their estimate, and that powers, I think they said, about a quarter of a million homes. And
Yeah,
so, I think 235,000 thousand acres. I want to say that's like a township and a half or two and a half townships, which is
Yeah,
6 miles by 6 miles, right? And so
yeah.
each square mile, 640 acres. So you can kind of do the math on 235,000 acres divided by 640 acres in a square mile. That can tell you how many square miles of solar panels it's going to take. Yeah, so the question here is about the app. So I pulled it up, Chris. It's MISO, MISO. I think you just go to the App Store, and I'm an Apple guy. I don't know what you guys on Android call that, but it's at the App Store. And MISO right now, of course, solar, the suns went down. Right now, believe it or not, wind is 26% of the fuel mix, but the wind is blowing, right? We've got a wind advisory coming in.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see tomorrow morning when the winds get to peaking, if that wind number stays the same or whether some of those wind generators will shut down because of too much wind speed, right? I
They
mean,
may
I hear,
they may tip over like that one in Paxton the other day that caused
right,
an environmental crisis.
right, right, exactly. Yeah, so it currently the demand is 71,000 megawatts. Coal's producing 17,000, natural gas 22,000, nuclear almost 11,000, and wind is 18,000 megawatts right now. So wind is a factor tonight, but
Yeah,
wind, whether that's more, when you look at this thing and you mentioned it, Chris, um, solar there's not the the amount of solar production. Wind is by far leading that, and I don't know why that is, but when you look at this MISO app routinely, there's always going to be more wind production than there is solar production. But
right.
yeah, well,
If they just keep putting up more windmills and more solar panels, it doesn't matter. The truth doesn't matter here. They need to tune into truth, logic, and common sense, and maybe we could maybe we could make some headway with them.
right, exactly. Well, Chris, maybe we ought to wind it up here before we go into the wee hours. Thanks
Yeah.
for being on, and thanks for everybody joining us this evening. Again, just remember tomorrow night, Taylorville, my last town hall that we'll do with myself and Senator McClure, or at least that's what we've got scheduled. We've got a kind of an intense schedule for the next 5 weeks. We'll be in every week right up until Palm Sunday weekend, and then they take about a 2 week break for Easter and then come back, and we'll go pretty hard on there. We'll run right up till May the 19th, I think, is the scheduled adjournment date this spring. But going to be a lot of stuff coming fast and furious over the next couple of
Mhm.
weeks as it's trying to get stuff through committee. That's going to be where most of the action is. So, folks, pay attention to your emails. There's probably going to be a lot of call to actions. A lot of these bills are starting to surface now and get assigned to committee over the next 2 weeks. And so, just kind of watch your emails and pay attention to what's important to you, and let us know, right, Chris? Email us and let us know kind of
Absolutely.
what's going on. And yeah, any closing thoughts, Chris, before we wrap this up?
Well, make sure that you like and share our Facebook posts and our things on Illinois Freedom Caucus. Go to IllinoisFreedomCaucus.org, and if
Mhm.
you're feeling really, really happy that day, click the donate button and help us to spread the word. They always say that money is the mother's milk of politics, and if you don't have money, it's really hard to get your message out. So
Mm.
we
Yeah.
appreciate all those that partners with us there on Friday evening up in Champaign at
Mhm.
Juniper's, and
Right.
we look forward to continuing to bring you the Tuesday night town halls,
Right.
press conferences, and the emails. Sign up for our emails. We do one individually as well as the Freedom Caucus, and it's information. It's not political spin. It's just this happened this week, and to stay abreast of the latest information that's going on in the Capitol.
Excellent. Chris, with that, I'm going to close out. We're going to hit the outro, and we'll see you Tuesday night unless something breaks that we need to break back in. Guys, thanks again. Have a great evening.
Thank you.